Greetings to everybody, wherever you may be on this planet, time zone, country. We have gathered here today to pray, meditate, and share some insights with you. So I'm going to open up with a small invocation. Wherever you may be, I would like you to get comfortable, stand if you wish, and if you can, take your shoes off if possible. So I would like for you to close your eyes if you can. If you don't want to, that's okay too. But I want you to imagine this is an invitation, right? It's an invitation for you to ask your ancestors to be with you here today. Wherever they may have come from on this planet, we ask you to invite your ancestry. Grandfathers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers, and the lands, if you know the lands that they came from, also invoke them to welcome them to be here with you. At the same time, I want to ask you to welcome your descendants as well. If you have children and or grandchildren, invite them to be here with you today too as well. And I also want you to acknowledge the land in which you are, where you are sitting, standing, being today, wherever that is in this world, and to recognize the ancestry of that land too. All the elements, all the elements, all the elements that come with it, all the elementals, fire, water, earth, air, and protect your spirits, whatever they may be. Everything we share with you today is not intended to compete, right, or replace what you already know, but intended to make it deeper. So we welcome you, ancestors of this place, ancestors of all the relatives gathered here today. We invite you to ask, we ask you to take a look around you, and greet the other relatives that are here as well, ancestors as well as descendants in this energy field that we're occupying today. Greet each other as relatives, greet each other as friends. We're going to give great gratitude for all the things that are around us today. Earth, we thank you for being with us today, for providing nurturing love and care for us in this way with your abundance. We're going to thank all the spirit animals and all the plants that give us nutrition and blessing that way too. We're going to thank all the elements that provide us with sustenance, fire, water, earth, air. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As some of my relatives say, 13 thank yous. Greet each other as relatives here in this world. Recognize each other as holding places, having a connection to a special energy that will bring healing and well-being to all of us in a very unique way. Unique to you, unique to the land in which you grew up from which you came from. So in this way, we give you blessings. And we thank you, ancestors, for being here today. We thank you, Earth, for being with us here today. We thank you, Earth, for having been with us throughout the days in the past and in the days to come. We thank you for the nourishment that you provide for us through the elements, through the plants, through the waters, through all the animals that give themselves as food. And it is our prayer, our intention for us to be able to reciprocate to you, with you, in our own unique way. May we feed you in our own unique way too, however that is, whether it's through our stories, through our songs, through our grief, through our tears. In that way, may we feed you. May our descendants learn to feed you in that way too. May our ancestors learn to feed you in that way too. So all this grief that we carry, all this sadness about being separated, about being isolated, about being in exile, we ask that you help us to put it down and to learn from each other, to share with each other our songs, our dances, our customs, our foods, our stories. May we may we be infused with curiosity and interest, so we may learn from each other, we may heal each other, and we may be in relationship to you, old ones, ancestors, spirits, nourishers, providers, creators, shapers, molders. So in this way, I ask that you bless us with the intention of carrying this on all year long, not just on some Thursday in the middle of November, end of November, but may this go on all the time, every day, every night, every day of the week, every month of the year. May we learn to be grateful as humans. Learn to be grateful for all the plants, all the animals that feed us, all the elements that nourish us and protect us in that way too. And we thank you, relatives who are here with us today, for being here today and sharing this time with us. So, from this time and in this place, take a deep breath, recognizing our ancestors and all the other relatives, no matter how strange they may look, no matter how strange they may be dressed, no matter how strange they may be talking. May we learn from each other, and may we learn from you too in that way. So take a deep breath, open your eyes, and get comfortable. And I'm going to pass it on to my sister Elaine at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. That was amazing and beautiful. And I just appreciate you for bringing that awareness as we're moving into Thanksgiving, where we start to heavily think about our ancestors and the impact that they have on us, and becoming aware of all in our lives that are good, and things that we are grateful for. Um, I appreciate you. And we're going to go into a meditation. And again, if you stay comfortable, you can close your eyes if you like, or you can leave them open, but just leave your gaze about a foot in front of you. And I just want you to relax in your seat. I'm going to set a little timer here. Relax into your chair and notice your breath. Let's start with 3 deep breaths. First, deep breath in through your nose, as much air as you can bring in. Deep, 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 deep breath. And then release slowly through your nose, releasing as much air as you possibly can through your nose. And then another deep, deep breath in through your nose, as much air as you can take in. And then release slowly, 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 all the air through your nose. And last, deep, deep breath in, as much air as you can take in. And then finally, just releasing again through your nose. And just letting your breath happen. And just noticing your breath in this moment. Noticing the way the breath comes into your body, the sensation, maybe the coolness of the fresh, cleansing breath that comes in. And then noticing how air leaves your body. Noticing how your breath leaves, maybe the warmth of the air that leaves. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest or your belly in this moment. And just paying attention to your breath. Knowing that your breath can be an anchor for you if ever you're feeling any discomfort or dis-ease or anxiousness at any moment. You can always come back to your breath. Just noticing how your breath happens within your body. And in this moment, just noticing all the good that we have, all the good that is in our lives in this moment. And noticing our relationship to gratitude. Noticing how we feel about the goodness that we have. Just noticing what in your life right now is good. Just simply, what is good? And noticing those things in this moment, almost as if you can count them off, or if you're watching those things, almost like watching clouds go by. Each thing in your life that is good for you right now in this moment. Give yourself permission to do that. Noticing each thing as you can watch them going by almost like clouds. And as each item comes up for you, noticing each item that has brought you joy or goodness in your life. Just to say thank you. Notice one thing. Say thank you to yourself. Notice the next thing that comes up. say thank you. And as thoughts continue to arise on the goodness that is happening for you in this moment, just continuously saying thank you over and over for each of those things. Maybe it's the air that you're breathing. Maybe it's the chair you're sitting on. Maybe it's the warmth or the sensation underneath your feet that you're thankful for, that sensation. Maybe it's your creativity that you're thankful for. Maybe it's the skills you possess. Maybe it's an idea that you had that you're thankful for. Maybe it's someone else in your life. But each thing that comes up, to continuously notice them. And I'm sure we have a lot of things to be thankful for, from the very small to the very large. Just being thankful for each thing as it comes up, saying thank you, and moving on to the next thing, saying thank you, till you find yourself saying thank you maybe 20, 30 times. But just noticing each beautiful thing in your life. Then I want you to turn your attention to yourself and thinking about all of the things that you are, all of the things that make up you, that are beautiful and wonderful and add value to other people's lives and add value to the world. And just being thankful for yourself in this morning, in this moment. Giving yourself gratitude. Just thinking about what about you is beautiful? What about you is special? What about you adds value to the world? And being thankful for that. Thanking yourself, giving yourself love, giving yourself gratitude in this moment. And in these last few moments of thankfulness, doing a little loving kindness for yourself, saying to yourself, may I be happy, may I live with ease, may I be safe, and may I be healthy. Giving yourself loving kindness and gratitude. And then giving others, everyone in the universe, all sentient beings without exception, may they all be happy. May all sentient beings without exception in the universe everywhere, may they all live with ease. May they all be safe. And may all sentient beings everywhere without exception be healthy. And then turn your attention back to your breath. Just noticing your breath in this moment, where it comes in, and noticing how the breath leaves. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you for your practice. And with that, I'm going to ask Sister Peace to talk about a poem that she has.
Good morning. Good afternoon, good evening to you all. I'm so happy to be here with you. There's a bit of jackhammering or something happening outside my window, so I hope that you all can hear me okay. Wonderful. I want to share with you a poem that I wrote 2 years ago when I was at our monastery in France, our big flagship, as it were, the first, Plum Village, located about an hour and a half from Bordeaux. And on the occasion of Thanksgiving, uh, it was my turn to lead the walking meditation. And for some reason, this poem came to me, and this is how I prepared the group for our walking meditation. And I thank Miguel and Elaine for uh, tilling a fertile ground for us to move forward from. So I will read it. This was written on November 22nd, 2018. Oh my goodness, almost exactly 2 years to the day. And I just simply called it Walking Meditation Poem on the occasion of Thanksgiving. On this beautiful, clear, full day, a day we celebrate Thanksgiving, let us walk deeply with our ancestors. Let us touch our ancestors in gratitude for each step, and with each step, each breath. Let us touch each breath and step. Our ancestors, our land ancestors, our spirit ancestors, and our eldest ancestor, our beloved Mother Earth. With each step and each breath, let us touch the earth, and through her, our gratitude and thanksgiving. May we walk, may we breathe with a gata or poem to bring our minds back to our bodies. Only this moment, only this step, only this breath. I walk with this today. With nowhere to go, I arrive with each step, with each breath, right here and right now. Thank you for allowing me to share this poem, things that I sort of very rarely take the time to even write down. And I'm going to now pass the baton to our beloved Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Peace. And thanks to Elaine and Miguel for grounding us in this space today. Sort of in the vein of what everyone's been speaking to, I think a lot about the little reminders in each and every moment that live within us and outside of us. Reminders that gratitude and our closeness with our bodies, our emotions, our spirits is what truly heals me in this difficult time. And I wanted to share this passage from a book that I'm reading called When Things Fall Apart, given to me by my dear friends Saul and Seema from Quiet. And the passage goes, When we are training in the art of peace, we are not given any promises that because of our noble intentions, everything will be okay. In fact, there are no promises of fruition at all. Instead, we are encouraged to simply look deeply at joy and sorrow, at laughing and crying, at hoping and fearing, at all that lives and at all that lives and dies. We learn that what truly heals is gratitude and tenderness. It isn't that we say, it doesn't matter about me all that much, but if I change the world, it would be better for other people. It's less complicated than that. We don't set out to save the world. We set out to wonder how other people are doing and to reflect on how our actions affect other people's hearts. That passage deeply resonates with me because ever since I became a mother, I live in constant anxiety and fear. I'm sure many of you on here can relate to that. And it's interesting that the thing that gives me anxiety and fear, which is her, is also the reminder that everything we have and everything we need is in each and every moment. And that the power to be in that moment is what allows us to unlearn really destructive behaviors and tendencies. And so I'm grateful for all of our little ones, all of the young folks that will follow us, for that constant reminder and for teaching us how to unlearn in order to truly learn. And I will pass it off to my friend Tony. Is Tony with us?
I think, yeah, Tony jumped off.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
He'll be back with us again soon. That was beautiful, Michelle. I just wanted to kind of jump in there because we can kind of all relate, right? The thing that gives us the most anxiousness is the thing that we find so dear, right? The things that bring us so much joy. And it's because these things or people rather that bring us so much joy that we're so grateful for, we're worried for their safety, we're worried for them, we want them to be well, we want them to be happy, because we are so grateful for them. And it's just did Tony just come back? Oh, Tony, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
No.
Welcome, Tony.
Hey, I'm back.
Doing good things.
Doing good things. If I'm in this group with this cohort of people, I'm doing good things. So happy to be here. I'm about to jump in and say something because I had a chance to. First of all, thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Miguel, for leading us in. Elaine for just guiding us into it in a way that actually made me happy after repeating those affirmations. Sister Peace, thank you for that poem. You have walked yourself into a portal in which there are more poems, I hope, that are coming our way. This is the space for it. Yeah, exactly. And Michelle, as always, thank you for giving us a personal account and leading us in with Things Fall Apart, which is I was forced to read in school. And then I fell in love with it after. After I understood the gravitas and the opportunity to travel reading that book. It is not just fiction. It is, of course, it is a spiritual tome as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that I'd like to bring up as we start riffing here, and sister, I feel like we should let you explain the acronym again when it's time for our RIFF. There's something in terms of being grateful. When we talk about being grateful to our ancestors, there was something else that came up in a podcast I was listening to. Is it Ural? Who wrote *Sapiens*, was talking about these binaries that we're always caught between as human beings. So there is, this factor of war, right, throughout history, which is usually a war of two binaries, right? And now that we are post-election, right, we still see that these binaries are going to exist, right? And so it seemed like this theme of not just spectrum, embracing a spectrum, which is one of the things that we've talked about before, but one of the things that was talked about was the opportunity for humanity in particular to liberate oneself and to liberate others. This ongoing opportunity. And so for me, that brought me back to the source, if we want to get back to source, because in source, right, we don't worry about binary as we stand in source. And there was this thing that I am grateful for, though, if we get into not only binaries, but get into contrast. One thing that, during Elaine's meditation, I wanted to be grateful for contrast. Because without contrast, we don't have variety. We don't have the expression of, right, the nature expresses itself, our universe expresses itself through a myriad of forms. So without contrast, is there a definition? So I was grateful for contrast today as well, especially as we enter into the holiday season and we engage with our relatives, some of us, or the families that we pulled in. That contrast is more apparent than ever. So how do we appreciate the myriad of perspectives, the myriad of experiences, how nature expresses itself through us? So through that, I guess, have we started the riff? I'm gonna mute myself. Happy to be here amongst all of you. And I think Sister Peace, there's an ask for you to explain RIFF, the RIF.
All right. Well, this wonderful cohort of fun and fabulous folk, that's a new one, FFF, fun and fabulous folk, would get together. And when we are planning what it is that we share, we end up like a jazz ensemble. And, somebody drops a line, or I think the word these days is bar. Is that right? I'm a little bit behind on these things. And anyway, and we riff and we go back and forth and we share these insights and we resonate and we have fun and we learn how to forgive. And so riff is resonant insight. Help me with the last two F's. Resonant insight, forgiving, and fun.
Forgiveness and fun, yes.
Yes, so we have to start and end on a high note, resonant and fun. And so we thought, well, we should share this, and Tony just kicked it off. Thank you, sir. He thinks he left for a few minutes, but he never left. He's never left. Right. And so here we go. And we had a little bit of a conversation, and I know Elaine is going to share much more on this, but about, you know, this new era. I'm grateful to hear. I'm with bated breath to hear how she's going to share with us about this new era. And I just wanted to talk about what I sense to be a global gratitude right now, regardless of your stripe, regardless of where you've gone or you come from. Right now, the world is exhaling together. And we can feel that. I can feel that. And in America, and I think a lot of the world, we've experienced trauma for these past 4 years. And again, it doesn't matter which side that you're on, things are such that everybody's traumatized. And it lands in our bodies. And thank you, Miguel, for helping us to remember, you know, to be with those ancestors in us and that are still around us, and ancestors to be, which we're called descendants at this point in time. And to just have a huge amount of gratitude to be able to have this big exhalation together. Because we know that, you know, trauma lands in the body. And fortunately it does, because wow, that's the first place we can go to try and heal it. And of course it affects all of our bodies that are united and connected, our physical, our emotional, our spiritual, our mental, and our conscious body, beyond just the thinking brain, but that conscious part of us. So I'm offering gratitude for that. In what I'm going to actually ask Elaine to enlighten us with her sense of new era.
Thank you, Sister Peace. Well, we just were happened to be talking before this started about like just this new era. And while nobody believes that the incoming president is going to save us all, there's hope for us. And it's just so happening that there's change and hope with things in the world changing, right? So the thing that we know that is constant is change. That if things were great, they're gonna at some point not be so great. But when things are really, really not great, we know that things can change. And while we're experiencing this whole COVID thing that's happening, one of the things that was interesting to reflect upon is just like the change of the seasons, the change of the weather, the change of COVID cases, which at this moment are getting worse. But we know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, meaning that we're going to get past this with either vaccines that maybe someone will take by June, maybe, because we're not all crazy about taking it right now, but we know that change is coming. And I was just thinking about just harvest, that this is this harvest time where there's abundance, and abundance in people, right? Abundance in the people that are in our lives. So whether we're going through these difficult moments or not, this is that time of year where family and people kind of get together. And even though we're not getting together physically, we are getting together spiritually. And I feel like how we started with Miguel bringing our ancestors into the room was a big way for us to really stay in touch with the abundance of the people in our lives. So when change is happening for us, we have our ancestors, which does not change, right? Those people are who they are, and they're forever going to be that. And that these are these times where we can rely on them and know that we have people in our lives that kind of have their hand on our back to say, we're going to get through this. We're going to keep moving. This is difficult. This is really bad, but we are moving all together. And even though everyone is not on the same page on how we should move, we have enough of us who believe in the mission that we can kind of rely on. And it's so interesting because I kind of wanted to go back to what Tony was talking about, contrast, because contrast is so important when we kind of frame things, because that's the lens that we look at gratitude from loss almost, right? Sometimes we look at what we don't have to see what we really do have. Like, last week I had no money and this week I have money, or last week I had this and this week I don't. So sometimes that gratitude comes from lack, which is so interesting. And that there's that contrast that's happening there, which I heavily believe in, that we look at things as this versus that. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but it is how we get to that place of gratitude and appreciation, that sometimes it is through the lack of having a thing that we're able to really understand what it means to have so much when so many things seem so wrong in the world. So one of the reasons why we kind of wanted to talk about gratitude is not just because it's Thanksgiving, you know, but we need to be appreciative always when things are at their worst, is when we really, really need to dig into gratitude to be able to carry us through. And not to say that gratitude is going to save the day, but we need to keep going. We're in a dark place, a lot of us, and gratitude is going to remind us that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is something great even in all of this. There's a lotus flower, a flower that's called the lotus flower that grows in mud, right? And it thrives, and it's this gorgeous, gorgeous flower, but it's growing in muck, in like a swamp. And that even though we may be in the swamp at times, we still are that lotus flower that's able to shine and able to blossom. So I don't know, just a few things that we talked about right before this call, as a matter of fact.
So Elaine, for me, that brings up two questions, which is, since we're riffing, there's an opportunity for us, because what we're talking about is kind of the opportunity. We hear you eating, Miguel. I appreciate that. Because I'm hungry. Because I'm hungry and I wish I was eating right now. I make this joke with everybody now, Miguel, where I'm like, I get offended when I get on Zoom calls and people don't eat now, because I'm like, am I not good enough to break bread with? We're always breaking bread on every call now. We're drinking, we're eating, which is, but to lead that back into what Elaine is talking about, it's something that I'm always thinking about. What are the new mainstays for the next normal, right? What have we experienced through this time period? What are those remnants of this time going to be in terms of our learning? So when you mention the word harvest, it's something that I'm really obsessed with, because I feel like the harvest is there's opportunity for the harvest to return, right? So how do we share the fruits of our labor and the fruits of everything that we've experienced with each other? It's not just going to happen in Thanksgiving. What is the harvest? Is it just seasonal, or will that become a practice for us in terms of the new harvest? And then two, you mentioned, I wanted to get into, this is the second part of the conversation. What is the spiritual vaccine going to be moving forward?
I would love to pose that to the folks listening. I wonder if anybody's interested in putting it in the chat. What is your harvest? What are the fruits of your labor? And what is the spiritual harvest? Just interesting. Folks,
spiritual vaccine. Here we
I have a thought about the spiritual vaccine, and it's actually came out of my conversation with you, Tony. What was it, like a week ago at this point?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Where we were talking a lot about the role and practice of deep listening, and how the act of, or the experience of feeling heard can heal social, political divides. We know that a lot of these divisions are constructed by things that we've created and reinforced through unequal systems. Divisions that don't actually really exist, although we treat them as if they do. And that is reinforced by the feeling of a constant lack. And also, I think the feeling of not being seen or understood by people around us. And so what would that look like if there was a groundswell of folks who started to feel like they mattered? How could that energy transform and help us to shape this quote unquote new normal?
Boy, thank you, Michelle. I would pose to you, Tony, that the spiritual vaccine is the harvest. And I would say, and I shared this a little bit with the group before you came on, but I have an idea of a spiritual vaccine that you of all people can probably get it to the right quarters. And that is, in this particular time, not only in our country, but in the world, but I'm going to start small with our country and suggest that the harvest and the vaccine is, as Michelle said, for us to listen deeply to each other. And I'm hoping that the new administration and then I thought, well, why can't we do it as For Freedoms and Wide Awakes? Why can't we be the reconciliation czars? Why can't we gather together of every stripe and have deep and compassionate and listening sessions to each other to try and to understand where we are? Because only when we do that will we find, with an open mind and heart, the common ground that we can walk upon. And that common ground on the earth that Miguel reminded us is that where we can put our grief, we can put our heartache, we can put our disappointment, and that is the earth's medicine. And that she will transform into medicine for us. So at first I thought, oh, the new administration should have this reconciliation thing, but I'm thinking it should be a groundswell, just as it's already been said. And we need, RCs, we need reconciliation czars to just start it and to open it up. And of course it will be virtual, but maybe we can raise it up and have conversations with some people we don't know and don't understand. And to me, the biggest gift that comes out of listening deeply to another is if after doing that, they then ask us the question, and what about you? Well, there you go. The minute that opens up, we're on the way.
Beautiful, sister. I mean, it makes me, well, first of all, Michelle has already started on this work. I hope you guys discussed that, right? Is that what happens when I miss things? But Michelle has been doing these sessions of like practicing deep listening and fine tuning that structure and format. So here we go. Call to action, Michelle. Another call to action. This is what happens every time we get on these calls. We spin out like 19 new projects, which feed back into really 1 to 2 projects. It's all one project, life. But the deep listening part too, I wonder, sister, it's because you're just dead on, right on point. But then I guess I've also been practicing the ancestral listening as well. right? So how do we listen to that? You know, I've had to make the distinction recently between, right, the inner voices, right? So which one is the ancestral voice? Which one is the saboteur? Because that one sounds just like me. I realized, right? And then which one is the ancestral voice? Here's a question I guess I'd love to throw out. Is the ancestral voice the same voice as the nature voice? Is it all intertwined? Is there any distinction, or is it all the same? I guess is another question I have for everyone. I guess that's a Miguel
That's
question.
a Miguel question.
Well, you have to you have to really learn discernment, and I think the my first suggestion is you have to go out and spend time with the land. I had one of the old medicine men that I spent time with. He was a Paiute. His name was Raymond Stone, and he said everything we are comes from the land. If we ever forget, we have to go back to the land, and the land will tell us. And I think for us, what I feel, I've been working with people in ceremony for about 40 years or so. And one of the first things that I recognized is a deep sense of alienation among all the people that I worked with. And this cuts across all ethnic, socioeconomic brackets and everything. Everybody's disconnected in some form. And you have to figure out where that fragmentation, where does it come from? So there's no formal introduction for many of us to be in relationship with the earth, period. We always, it's very much divided. And to me, a real potent experience was uh, when I emerged. I had a vision years ago, and I was participating in a ceremony, and one of the real things that I realized is I was watching my umbilicus being reattached to the tree of life. Right? I won't. That's what I'll share with you. So, to me, initiation or initiatory practices in many tribes and cultures in ways are connecting you with the universal mother and the universal father in an energetic way. And basically, it's like an introduction to let you know that you have a family that's much, much vaster and wider than your actual physical blood family. So there's a way in which we have to be reintroduced to be in relationship to the world around us. And that means that, like I said at the beginning of this, and I really feel I've been working with this for a while to try to figure out how to integrate it into what we know, but you have to be able to discern the voices, and this takes practice. I drove a cab in LA for about 2 years. And so after my third shift, I had to realize that I had to, within 5 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, I had to figure out if my fare was going to either rob me and or kill me or give me a good tip. So I had to learn how to figure out how to talk about learning how to discern in a really fast way. And there's different ways to learn how to separate the voices, but you can do it. But you have to learn how to listen, and you have to learn how to listen at different rates. Different things have different rates. I was at a retreat one time. We were out in the woods in the Northern California in the redwoods, and this guy was talking. He didn't. He said, "I don't believe in trees. I don't believe trees have any sentiency." And I said, "Listen, think about a redwood. They live to be about 3,000 years old. So if you're going to talk to a redwood, you're like a little gnat, you know, and this is what you sound like to a redwood. So you got to slow down and match your energies. And the retreat was 10 days long. The last night we were there, we were outside in the woods around midnight or something like that, chit chatting. And he comes running by, guys, 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 the trees talk to me. So it took him about 8 or 9 days to match speed. And this is what we have to do. We're out of sync. We're not synchronized to the rhythms of the earth and to or even to our own rhythms. We don't know how to participate. We have taken ourselves, the crudest way to say it is we've taken ourselves out of the food chain. So the challenge right now for us is how do we integrate ourselves into the food chain? You know, we think of life as being the opposite of death. No, birth is the opposite of death. Together, those things compromise the cycle of life. So we have to learn how to participate. So reciprocity to me is one of the biggest gifts that we have to learn from this whole pandemic. We have been forced to unplug. We don't lose feathers, scales, or fur like animals or plants do. Okay? So this is our forced hibernation in some form or another. So we have to regenerate. So all these things this is like the antidote, right? The vaccine is learning how to participate. The more isolated you are, the more separated you are, the more difficult you will be because you're not in relationship to the world around you. And that to me is really important. How to be in communion, in community with the world around you, which includes the ancestors. Many of our ancestors did not know how to get along with each other. Conquest, that lives in me. My ancestors fought like crazy, so I had to figure out how to calm them down. So that's what I think about right now. So thank you for listening.
I like that we're all listening to each other. The deep listening is in effect as we're during this call. I wanted to see if there was anyone from our panelists that wanted to chime in, because I think we only have 8 minutes left. I see some familiar virtual faces. I was going to say familiar faces in the chat. Thank you, Claudia, Evan, Karen. But I wonder, it's okay. So Karen has said here, I've come to believe that it's up to we, the people, our groundswell will lead the way for the political leaders to follow, and it's part of our work. Yep. I think it's to help guide, sometimes make them, and definitely I believe that love is the way forward. Absolutely. So it's this thing, I think in the Wide Awakes, Black Thought mentioned it in one of his videos, and it kind of lands on we are all we got, right? So we are all we have, which has been stated by, of course, by other people before. But I think this realization, and I think Sister P spoke to this. We are looking at, let's say, for some people, they are looking at the president-elect and the vice president-elect as beacons of hope, and funneling our hope, and for some people, action into those two individuals, when I think part of that shift that has happened in the last year has been the responsibility has shifted back to us. And so there is something about this. For me, I was putting it under the umbrella of hyper-local. I had a feeling we would be forced into hyper-local situations. So at some point, this idea of collective care, which is happening, and I guess in Swahili, I guess it's also the idea of Ubuntu, right? Which is, right? Here we go again, the collective care, the collective concern. Your health is my health, which is slowly starting to happen for all of us. But to tie that in, and then I, want to pass it on to anyone else who wants to speak. This idea of family, getting back to that as well, food chain and family, which is interesting binary that just came up, but getting back into the ecosystem, which is what's happening to us. Realizing that we are not the end all be all of anything is very interesting. So I just want to open that back up, throw that back in again as I mute myself, which is my favorite activity to do now, is to just mute myself.
Tony, you made me think of this other book I'm reading by Grace Lee Boggs.
Oh, Grace Lee. Yeah, Grace Lee Boggs. Oh,
so
okay.
There's this amazing quote on page 38 for those of you who own this book. And I think
you
it
have to
speaks
say the name
to
of the book, Michelle. You got to say the name of the book so you can.
It's called The Next American Revolution: Sustainable Activism for the 21st Century. And she says, she's talking a lot about these similar ideas, and the passage goes, she's actually quoting Einstein. And Einstein says, a human being, Einstein concluded, is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty.
there's this thing about Grace Lee Boggs. I wanted to just drop another, and I think I'll put it in the chat. A friend of mine, my for those who know that I'm have a world building practice, right? Imagining the future with communities and creating fictional worlds, but with the hope of a real world modern day impact. With the two artists, Lauren McCarthy, who is a creative technologist and performance artist, and Grace Lee, not Grace Lee Boggs, who is a documentary filmmaker, who just did And She Could Be Next, which is on POV, about a lot of the women who ran for office over the last few years, catalyzed by the current administration, right? But also American Revolutionary, which is her documentary on Grace Lee Boggs, who's one of her teachers. And so if we talk about shifting from Grace Lee Boggs, also not a shift, widening her view from, she was very instrumental in the Black Power movement in Detroit, and then expanded into the Grace Lee Boggs School. So what you're talking about, Michelle, is just like, it's resonating on all levels for me, because this thing about the collective, going from the individual consciousness into the collective consciousness, which is where we are. Those people who are not, who are still struggling with that, I think that's what the next few years are going to be for them, which is taking that shift. So.
I just wanted to add one thing, because we've talked about discernment, we've talked about deep listening, and those two are intimately intertwined and related, because in order to listen deeply, one must have capacity to discern. And the other side of the coin for me is the compassionate speech, capacity to speak without doing harm, even in the most harmful of situations. And, this dream that we all are having about, using deep listening as a channel of reconciliation, we have to have capacity to be able to respond appropriately without judgment and discrimination. So that's another really important aspect, because before the question comes, as I said before, and what about you? There has to have been some sharing, some compassionate sharing, to let the other know it's okay to be who you are and vulnerable, or wherever you are. And that gives the pause for cause.
Beautiful. I think we're going to end on that, sister. That is the mic drop of today. I was sitting over here, people couldn't hear my noise. I was like, yeah, thumbs up. We're all clapping at home, but we are reaching time. So we want to thank all of the cohort, the crew here, and all of our participants who are with us today. Thank you for your wisdom as well, and your presence, being part of this meditation today in this group and our riff. So thank you. We will see you again soon.
Thank you all. Be well, be safe.
Thank you. Offering you virtual hugs. And remember, hug yourself and everybody else, even if it's virtually.
Yes, yes, yes.